Jai Guru Dev. Welcome to our exploration of key Vedanta concepts through satsangas of Acharya Shunya. And we are continuing our exploration with the concept of Maya today. This will be the topic of our next several sessions, and this is this magic show of key Vedanta concepts. If you've ever wondered if this world is really real, then this exploration of Maya will give you some food for thought and will lead to some practical insights. And so we will begin, as this wisdom is nothing new. These concepts have been passed down from the sacred texts from teacher to student. We will begin by honoring that lineage with gratitude and reverence and humility. We are going to chant our lineage prayer, which recognizes the divine source of this wisdom, and then recognizes our teacher or our teacher's teacher or teacher's teacher's teacher, and gives our salutations and gratitude to this lineage. And so I invite you, if you wish to chant along with me or simply to listen as our opening prayers come on your screen, we will chant on an inhale. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Shanti Prakashaya Namaha. Om Ayodhyanathaya Namaha. Om Shunyacharya Namaha. Om Atmatattvam Namaha. Om Vidyatattvam Namaha. Om Suryaya Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat. With that, I would like to invite Sadhvi Ishani to take us forward.
Jayma, everyone, welcome. I see we have some new participants with us today. Welcome. And many familiar faces. So beautiful to see you all with us today. So today's session is part of our Key Vedanta Concepts series. And today we are starting a new section of teachings, and we'll stay on this theme of Maya for a few weeks. To prepare us to receive this teaching, we can stop to appreciate that Advaita Vedanta as a philosophy, as a spirituality, offers us a very unique possibility. Unlike other philosophies or religions or spiritual paths, it tells us that God is all around us in every atom of the universe, blade of the grass, star in the sky, stone on the ground, as well as the divine is that consciousness, that awareness is beyond all concept of space, of time, of dimension. So more than that, not only is God in the tangible and the real world, and also in the expansive and beyond our human conception, but it's also awake and alive and present inside of us. So there is this acknowledgement inside of Advaita Vedanta that there is one divine presence, this consciousness, this awareness, this bliss, which is surrounding us, which is beyond us, and which is within us. And the truth is that we are all powerful, but yet we also experience, and Advaita Vedanta acknowledges this also, we also feel a limitation all around us. We also don't really believe that most of the time. we seem to have forgotten something very key, very important, very integral about who we are and what this universe is made up of. We're very often unaware of this divine presence that's within us, within our friends, within our enemies, within nature, and beyond all of that. So the question comes up for those of us who are investigating this, tussling with this friction that we can feel. The question then arises, how did we forget? How do we not know our true nature? What happened that we forgot? And so this satsanga with Acharya Shunya, where we look at this concept of Maya, we're going to explore that. We're going to explore that. So I invite you today to come at this inquiry with a softness, with a curiosity, without an expectation that we're going to walk away from this and have fully wrapped our arms around the whole answer and just be able to dust our hands and say, great, I figured it out. I know why I'm stuck. Perfect. But we're unraveling layer by layer this teaching on this really profound concept that invites us into a much deeper inquiry. And we'll be left with more questions than answers. And that's good, because to begin to find answers, we have to start questioning first, isn't it? So I'd like now to begin with this satsanga. And before we begin, just to, again, relay the outline of how we'll approach this today. Right now, we'll watch a recording from Acharya Shunya's satsanga, recorded, I believe, in 2017 on this series of key Vedanta concepts. Today's recording is about 20 minutes. After that, we will just have 5 minutes of silence. And in the 5 minutes of silence, you're invited to let this teaching reverberate within you. Let it echo inside this chamber of your own mind. Observe what emerges without feeling like we need to record every thought. Just letting what has come in through the ears resonate and shake off and dust off an inner knowingness. And we'll have 5 minutes of that. And at that time, you're welcome to unmute yourself if the space around you allows. So the idea is that we will be in silence, but together. We'll spend 5 minutes there. I'll bring you back. And at that point, we'll open up the floor. People can share what emerged for them during that time. We'll have some interaction and some dialogue around this teaching of this satsang today. So let us begin. I invite us to share the video and receive these teachings together.
Go ahead and close your eyes. I think that's a good idea before we receive this new knowledge. And I think a really potent question to yourself as you close your eyes is, who am I? Just start asking yourself this, who am I? And then come back to that same question, who am I? Who am I? What am I doing here? Who am I? Who am I? Go back to that again now. This is a fierce sadhana. This is a great, deep sadhana or a deep meditation, contemplative meditation. Who am I? And as you keep asking that, the I tends to become closer to us. So, who am I? And one of the reasons you can ask that question, and it feels such an obvious question to ask, who am I? Isn't this a very obvious question to ask? But how many people ask that question? Most people don't ask, who am I? Oh, you are son and so, you're grandson of so, you are of this religion, that country, this race, and these are your duties, these are your behaviors, this is your food, this is your cuisine. That's the answer we get, and we get satisfied by that answer. And this ridiculous, ignorant behavior is known as Maya. Somehow, that ignorance that causes each one of us to have a samsara, right? at a collective level has been described like an enchanted spell on all beings. And because of that spell, we have had a forgetfulness. I will explain. If you meet a magician and that magician has magic, then those magical powers of the magician, there might be a lot of magic that you see, but ultimately they can be traced back to a magician, right? In the same way, Maya is a power that ultimately has a substratum, and that substratum is what? Brahman. Okay? That same pure consciousness. Because in Advaita, there is no other. So we're not saying there is Brahman, and he's a man, and then he has a wife called Maya. We're not saying that. We're not doing Shiva Shakti here. We're not doing dualism here of posturing this and then this. We're not doing that, which we see in Sankhya or Yoga or Tantra. We're talking one being, okay? So have you ever seen those people who play with fire? So if fire is burning on a stick and they rotate it, right? They rotate the fire and they move with the fire. Do you see a circle of fire being created? The faster they go, there is a circle. But is there really a circle? No. That circle that you see, though there is no circle, is Maya. So Maya literally means not that. That which appears to be something but is not really in existence is Maya. This is very serious. This is a class of quantum physics. This is a class of amazing depth. If you join me, you'll have a lot of fun with this universe. So apparently, modern science has for a long time said there is matter, right? Modern science bases all its premises on matter. And in fact, even says that this universe began with matter bursting and matter became consciousness afterwards. It's just a very ridiculous premise that matter becomes intelligent. So now quantum physics in the last 2 decades has found out what the Vedic sages have been saying along, and they found out that when you go to the deepest depths of matter, the smallest particles of matter, they don't follow any predictable laws of position or momentum. So therefore, the predictable world of matter is completely indeterminate at that level. So, and another thing that was found was that these smallest vibrations of matter, they kind of behave very randomly. And on top of that, they start taking shape and coming together when somebody looks at them. That means when a conscious being looks at those matter potentials, then something manifests. But otherwise, it is just a wide, infinite potential. So that means matter is dependent upon consciousness. Matter by itself has no existence. Which means that each one of us, which is whose consciousness, is giving birth to this world at every moment. And now quantum physics is qualifying that. So if you go to some place where you can look up YouTube and other places, even if you do, is this a real world or virtual world, you'll come across these videos by scientists, by quantum scientists, not just by ordinary people who are idealizing. And they are now mentioning how Vedanta was talking about that this world is probably even this objective world, the samsara world, yep, it's virtual. But even this objective world, are you with me? This world that we take as such concrete reality is probably appearing to be so, but if you look deeper, it has an existence and it does not have an existence. Okay. They recently looked at hydrogen atoms, and they looked at the electrons and the space between the electrons. So the electrons which create the entity of that atom are a minuscule portion. The rest of it is all space. And when you start measuring the space in one hydrogen atom is big enough to include billions of galaxies in it. Can you just imagine this? It's infinity that we are hitting here. So what you think is matter is really just infinite potential. And as we look at things, it becomes consciousness. So I'm not going to stay here. I'm not trying to use quantum physics to explain my point, but I wanted to explain it because I like quantum physics and I enjoy how it, clarifies that. It clarifies our reality or what we take to be so concrete. If you look deeper and deeper, it's just shimmering vibration. And even those vibrations are coming together based on the subject. So the subject is powerful, not the object. And so what this is saying is what you see is what is manifesting then. So your subjective consciousness has a role to play in your objective reality. All right? Can we agree to this much? And this word is known as mithya or maya. And maya literally means that which appears to be something, but on closer investigation, it's not fully there. So it's there or not there. We can't say this world doesn't exist because right now it exists. But if you look deeper and deeper, it might not exist. So, are you with me so far? Okay. So, one Swami or one teacher gave an example that when he was a child, they were playing a game, and that game was that the children said, we're going to lay out all these pillows on the floor, and you have to walk from this room, to this end of the room. But now we're going to blindfold you. So look at where the pillows are laid out. And then we'll blindfold you and you're going to walk across the room and you have to avoid the pillows. So the kid was really smart. After all, he was going to be a future Swami. So he really memorized the map of the pillows and he did a great job. And he really listened to the cues of the children. So if they would laugh, he would step away. And if they go, uh-oh, he would, So he was being very alert, using his memory, using the sound cues to walk across the room, and he did a pretty good job because he didn't step on any pillow. And then when the blindfold was removed, there was no pillow. This is Maya, where we are being told that we are doing this special dance, I got to figure out my relationship, and I got to learn all my knowledge, and I got to do all my breathing right, and I got to figure out my speech, and I'm going to get all my credits. You know how we do it in the dream too? We're like figuring everything out, but there's nothing. In the same way, we are being told that all this is going on, but probably this is a magical show. All right. So I'll give you some more examples. Was this helpful? We are approaching a complex topic through many angles. I am not teaching you sequentially. I'm opening your minds by giving you these examples, I'm helping you uncork some of our tight connection with our world here and now, as it is, So there was a man who died and he had 17 elephants that he left for his children, and elephants were his wealth. And he said, I have 3 sons and I would like my first son to get half of my wealth. I would like my second son to get 1/3 of my wealth, and I would like my third son to get 1/9 of my wealth. But it was very confusing because how do you break up 17 elephants into these numbers? So they were squabbling amongst themselves. Fortunately, the king kind of rode up there through that area, heard the squabble, and he got off of his elephant and said, here, I'm going to add 1 and it's going to become 18. Now this is really easy because half of 18 is 9, 1/3 of 18 is 6, and 1/9 of 18 is 2. And so all of you get what you want, and the total is 17, so we're left over with 1. So I guess I'll take 1. Everybody was happy. This is also Maya. We're just stupid. We're confused. We're going for these simple, we get upset, then we find solutions, and we're good. But it's not real in that sense. That's another example. A third example is, this is a traditional example from the Puranas, later scriptures from India, and Krishna, who's considered God or an avatar of Vishnu in Hinduism and Bhagavad Gita. He was going for a walk with a rishi, a sage called Narada. And Narada is a very interesting character because he's both considered a god and a rishi. And they were going for a walk together, and Rishi and Narada said, "So what is Maya?" And Krishna, being a great teacher, said, "I'll tell you about it, but can you fetch me some water? I'm thirsty." So Narada went to a house to ask for water, but a beautiful damsel opened the door. And Narada started talking to her. And by talking, they fell in love. One thing led to another, and he asked for the girl's hand. And then he got married, and one after another. He had 3 children also. He inherited some property from his father-in-law also, and 12 years had passed. And then one day a great flood came, and Narada was, very distressed, and he was holding on to his wife in one hand, his 2 children with the other hand, and the 3rd child, and they were trying to escape the river, and they had said bad karma and prarabdha and difficulty and destiny and bad luck, and all kinds of things were happening. And in the process, he lost his wife, and he was weeping. In the process, he lost his 2nd children, 2 children, and then the 3rd child fell in the water, and he was just like weeping. And then suddenly he heard a tap, and Krishna said, "You have the water? You've been gone 10 minutes, It's like, "I've been gone 12 years. No, 10 minutes. So it was a big whole virtual dream that Narada had dreamt and suffered the joys and the sorrows. But Narada was right there next to Krishna, which is Brahman, and it was okay. Are you getting some more ideas? So another way to define Maya is like Maya in the Vedas, and I've written some notes for myself. Maya is an interesting concept that has developed through various stages. But Maya in the Vedas, the most original mother text, just for you to know, the password of my computer is also Mahamaya. So the word, Ya Masa Maya. That's the definition, which means that which is not there but appears to be there is Maya. And in the Vedas, there are a couple of connotations of Maya. One is that it's an imperceptible power. Now, the rishis didn't try to, they observed it. They declared that there is an imperceptible power. The rishis or the sages never, from the Vedic tradition, they never say they are God. They never say we're God and we're telling you how it all works out. No, they're saying we are sages who have observed, and we recognize that there is some power along with the animals and the beings and the nature and all that. There is an existence of a power, a subtle power, anirvachniye, which cannot be described clearly. Cannot be defined that clearly. It's ungraspable. There is a power that exists, and this power is so magical or so interesting that it confounds us human beings who pride ourselves in our logic. So that story that I told you about the division of elephants was that even our logic is still under limitations of, under a spell. Like we pride ourselves for our logic. but we are still kind of confounded by Maya. We can't seem to go beyond it. So we make our agreements, but our logic is still kind of confounded by the time, space, and causality constraints of Maya. So we're not totally there because there is this presence and it has a confusing effect on the minds of people. So it has like a, technically we could say that even our scientists and all of us are asleep. We're just living in this world trying to figure it out. Like you bring an elephant in the room and you blindfold everybody and 20 people grope the elephant and the one who holds the tail says, elephant looks like it has a thin tail, which is, kind of coarse to touch. And the one who touches its trunk says, oh, I know what an elephant is, like a flexible monkey. The one who picks up its legs will say it's like a pillar. So we are touching pieces and parts of it and are feeling like, whoa, we know it, but really we don't know because Maya has, it's a power that is confounding our minds. Okay. And it also, in the Veda, another word for Maya was like it's a deceptive power. So it leads to some kind of illusions. Okay. Like we are going in the desert and we see a mirage of water and we run to it to drink water, but there is no water. Or we look at silver in a shell and we think there is silver, but it was really only mother of pearl. So we see things, we plan things and we run after them, but it's really only Maya. So similarly, like we find a lover and we think we've met everything. All our needs have been met. Only like 3 weeks later, we've realized nothing has been met. In fact, we have given away our peace of mind and our health and, our, various things, including our best chocolate to that person and etc. But it was a mirage that was created. Am I getting somewhere with you guys? So what's important for us as spiritual students is to recognize that there is another factor that is operating on all of us, and that is Maya.
So now we will enter into our 5 minutes of silent contemplation. So I invite you now to, if your space allows, you can unmute yourself so that we can be together in this silence. Make yourself comfortable. There's no need to write or draw or produce any conclusions. Now is the time to let this wisdom echo within. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes, or you can simply soften your gaze and spend these next 5 minutes allowing what we have just received to reverberate within. Right now, we're watching the ripples of what has entered our ears and caused us to have thoughts and images in the mind, and following that to see what insight, what effect, what echoes within us. Continuing to bring the mind back to the question of what did I just hear from this satsanga? What landed in me as a knowing in this satsanga? Continually coming back to our refined perception. How did what I just heard impact my thoughts, my feelings, my physical body? Let me observe the impact of this teaching on my being. And in this final 1 minute of our contemplation, perhaps now look at what is the core takeaway, the core question, or the core contemplation rising into your conscious mind. You can begin to put words to what has emerged from within you during the contemplation on the satsanga. Gently deepening your breath. Again, becoming aware of the breath, the edges of your body in space, where you're seated in the room where you are. Perhaps rubbing the palms together, generating some warmth, some awakened energy. Placing those warm palms on the eyes or anywhere on the body to bless and ground yourself, to come back into this common room. So welcome. We can again place our microphones on.
Sadhvi Ishani, you muted.
Ah, yes. So we can all mute ourselves. Yes. So with this satsanga, we received less of a linear teaching, as she said. We experienced a bouquet. We were handed a bouquet of stories and examples, and as she said, facets and angles at which to come to this concept of Maya, with the intention that it kind of makes pliable the things that have become rigid in our minds, our concepts and ideas of what is reality. So I'm just very curious to hear what your experiences have been. So as you contemplate what you would like to share of what came up for you. I'll mention one I see in the chat. There's a question about the view. When you're inside of the Zoom room, one technical side note, in that upper right corner, there's a button called View. And when you click that, you can choose to see the speaker, to see the gallery, so you can have some options there to change your view. It is very nice to see everyone's faces. So we've been handed this bouquet of beautiful flowers. Is there anything that would like to share kind of what highlighted for them, what emerged, one thought they had, or a question that came up, or a new insight that was uncovered? Parisa, was this a hand? No. Okay. Yes, James.
Okay, I'll give it a try. I think it was a nice continuation of what we started discussing last week about the objective world is not the ultimate reality. So I liked that link. And I think in the Gita, Krishna says at one point, he calls it this Maya of mine, which I love because that means it's actually divine. The Maya itself is divine. And I've heard some people who are very religious who say God is in everything, and actually here we have in this teaching that actually is true. That everything has a divine aspect to it, and also that in a sense we need this. This Maya is essential because it seems like we have this. We're obliged in a way to to have come from unity. We're obliged to actually experience unity. And the only way that we can experience unity is to experience disunity. So for me, this whole journey is through experience and through a revolution that we actually come back, that we actually know what unity is, because we can actually have an experience of it, a taste of it in the objective world. So for me, my kind of, I mean, this is just my kind of flavor on it is that, Brahman is everywhere. The nature of Brahman is to be conscious. And if your nature is to be conscious, then you want to be conscious of more and more. And I see that in more life. I mean, I want to know more. I want to experience more. I want to evolve more. There's this feeling of more. So, and I think this is Brahman. I think this is the spirit of Brahman that we actually want more. I think also she mentioned physics, which was very interesting because we could say that Brahman is this field of consciousness, and without consciousness, you wouldn't have the objective world because you wouldn't know what there would be no meaning to any experience, any appearance. Any appearance would have absolutely no meaning unless you had consciousness. So it's absolutely fundamental. So we talk about the field of consciousness. The physicists talk about the unified field, where all of the laws of nature come from that unified field. And we say the same. Everything comes from the field of consciousness. And that field of consciousness existed before the Big Bang, before the creation, and after the creation. So this, for me, this was wonderful. I feel very excited about it, very energized, and it has a real, I think it's very practical and has a real deep meaning. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Yes, yes. I like that you're bringing in that idea of we've come from the awareness and then we journey in to this illusion, this spell of Maya, but then we kind of journey back out. And the impetus to journey out is because Brahman is within us. So there's some kind of urging which is saying there's a vastness, you're not stuck inside of this, so the presence of Brahman is what's encouraging us to seek that wholeness, that unity again. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yes, Deborah.
I had an experience where they created this incredible saga, this fantastical soap opera of betrayal, sorrow, abandonment. I mean, really, everything you could think of. And not in that moment, it actually went on for days. But in listening to this and afterwards, I could see that I actually went, whoa, wait a minute, just wait a minute. And just, took a step back and I said, is there anything wrong in this actual moment? Is there actually anything happening in this very moment? And in listening to Acharya Shunya, I was hearing, I am a creator. That's what was really reverberating, is that I am the creator of my moment to moment experience. And there is so much of my experience that is just thoughts. And those thoughts aren't real. They're just not real. And it was like, wow.
Yes. Yes, Deborah, you're speaking to that idea of recognizing, kind of waking up to our samsara, that mentally constructed personal inside of my own mind, inside of my own story, inside of my own body. Like, oh, there's a whole reality being created here through thoughts, through reactions, and that is not ultimate reality, that's highly changeable. And so you're dropping into that recognition. And once we drop into that acknowledgement, the as you said, that I am the creator, then that correlating awareness comes, which is, this, I've created this myself unconsciously, which means I also have the power to consciously now create a new samsara, rewrite this samsara in my own mind. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I see some questions in the chat. First, I'll call on. Did you want to share something also, Suchira?
Yeah, Sadhvi Ishani, I had a question, but there are questions in the chat as well. So if you want to address those first, I'm good. I can wait.
Not at all. I think the question here in the chat, two people have asked, what is the difference between Maya or connection between Maya and Mithya? Yeah. Wonderful. Yes. So there's these two words that we encounter. One is Maya, which we're discovering today. And another word that we've heard frequently is Mithya. This word Mithya is often used in pair or in tandem with the word Mithya and Satyam. So Satyam is that eternal truth that is unlimited, that is beyond birth and death, that is ever existing, that is unchanging. No matter what's happening out in the world, it's constant, it's permanent, it's presence. So this Satyam is a description of Brahman. Brahman, that universal consciousness, is Satyam. It's that one foundational truth. And so we use this word Mithya to mean we can kind of keep discerning in the world, as Deborah did with her thoughts. Is this Satyam? Is this eternal truth? Or is this Mithya? Are these changing thoughts that rise and fall? And I feel like this, I think like this today, and I feel and think differently tomorrow. And that changeability tells me that it's not Satyam, it's Mithya. So this word Satyam and Mithya are very useful categorizations for us as we look at the world outside, we look at the world inside, and they help keep us bringing our awareness back to, but what is the eternal? What is the truth? What is the Satyam? in this. And that distinction keeps us kind of separating out and from keeping our whole investment in the samsara of our mind, keeps us kind of pulling back a little of our investment in what we think is this reality. And Maya is the word used to describe that overall, this veiling power. Maya has these two capacities. It's a power of Brahman to create this illusion of something that exists and sometimes goes away. An appearance, create an appearance of something which seems to be there, but deeply in reality is impermanent and is simply a projection. The example that Acharya Shunya gives in this context, this question also came in the community forum, and I appreciated that question there and this opportunity to discuss it here. You know this example Acharya Shunya shares from our texts of the snake and the rope. When you walk into this dimly lit room and you gasp because there's a snake there. But then when you flip on the light, you realize it's just a rope that appeared to be a snake. As long as we thought it was a snake in our reality. Our breathing increased, our blood pressure went up, our fear overcame us. We might have seen our life flash before our eyes. It was real. It was real. But when we turned on the light, we saw, oh, it was only an appearance of a snake. It only seemed like it was a snake. It's not actually a snake. So in this example, the rope that appears to be a snake is mithya. And the dimly lit room that allows that illusion, that projection, that misconception, that partial understanding to take place is Maya. So Maya is, we actually are radiant like the sun, but we're living in a dimly lit room where shadows can appear to be very, very scary and important things. So this is one perspective on the connection, but subtle difference between Maya and Mithya. So Chira, would you like to bring your question?
Thank you, Sadhvi Ishani.
Or your share, yeah.
Yeah, it's a question actually. I found the teachings today very, very grounding. And I think to some extent also very empowering when I think about Deborah's point on the creator piece. I sit with a very basic question though. Why are we under the veil of Maya?
Yes. Yes. And this question, please keep sitting with this question, because as we continue to explore Maya, we'll come to that. But why? Why is it like this? So we will continue that. That is the perfect next question. And I think in the coming week, we'll come deeper into that. So I'll not give a short answer now because a whole beautiful satsanga will come that will come with you there. Yes. Yes. Yes, Shweta. And then Isha. Yes.
Gemma. I found the video today just really powerful. It was mind-blowing, mind kind of expanding. Some of the examples that Acharya Shunya gave about Narada and Krishna's discourse and, snap, like he had thought about this whole reality, and just it really resonated with me as, I asked myself, who am I? And I had this attachment to like, I I was in India, I lost my, family home, and I lost a lot of things in my childhood, and um I lost that sense of belonging, and then I'm here in the United States, and I have like a new reality, and just I just carry that story with me wherever I go. Like I lost these things in my childhood, or like these imprints that have kind of made me who I am, and it's like I'm chasing ghosts of the past, even now, even in my new reality. And it's just it's crazy that I'm not only was it was Maya then, because it was still nothing's permanent. I'm now carrying something that happened like 30 years ago in the moment now. And it's just, it really like gave me a lot of food for thought, and maybe just having this kind of just really getting deeper to who am I? I'm not that person, that child. I'm even not who I think I am anymore in this reality. Like everything is so transient, and just kind of unveiling and just dropping these layers, because it's like I feel like there's layer upon layer upon layer of past experiences, traumas, new desires, new ambitions, and it's so many layers to shed to get to who I am. It was kind of like a hammer. The teaching today was like a hammer on that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we try to hold together the things that are impermanent and try to pull them together and make them last forever. And when they break away and fall away, which organically, naturally, they have to, we hold the memory of them, that I'm going, okay, then I'll keep them, here, so that game we play with ourselves. And one way that I work with this, and I'm seeing a few of the shares today resonate with this, is sometimes in the morning, the early morning, and you wake up, maybe your alarm goes on, or something happens, and you wake up and you realize you were just in a dream, and you get woken up out of a dream. And in that moment, I try to capture that feeling of, wow, I was really there. I thought that was so real. I was so invested in whatever fantastical world I was existing in. And now look, I've woken up and now I'm here. Feeling that feeling. And then throughout the day, I'll notice I'm invested in this, or this has become important. And it's okay that it's important, but it's become overly important. I'm holding on a little tighter than I need to. And in that moment, this story of this Narada and Krishna comes to me, where I say, okay, deepest self, or I could even say Krishna, or I could say anybody, tap me on the shoulder really quickly. Just wake me up for a moment. Like, where's my alarm? And so it's a beautiful moment to moment practice. Even many of these stories each give us a different kind of way to wake ourselves up in a way. And so that idea of waking up right here where we are, and asking to be woken up, and what am I forgetting here? I'm forgetting that eternal part of me that is untouched and unaffected by any of these spinning fire shows that are creating all these shapes and designs in this three-dimensional field. But wait, let me just pull myself back and remember the source of that light, that source of. So all of these, as she said, there are many facets. All of them give us a new entry point into remembering and coming back home to that deeper part of us that is constantly awake. Yes. Isha, I believe you had your hand raised.
Jama, everyone. Something that I was wondering about was kind of finding the balance between, having standards for your life and having a vision and having things that you want in this life while also not getting overly attached. And I know that is kind of the question, and it's what all of us kind of have to figure out, but just the moment to moment, how do you kind of live in the moment now, but also not forget that greater something out there, but then also live in what's happening right now?
Yeah, that is a contemplation that feels very relevant. Um, First of all, in June, when we begin our karma yoga teachings, that's when we're really going to get deep into this practice of how to perform action yet also be detached. So there'll be many teachings there for you on this. as we're what I would say also is, as we're looking at this as a projection, we're not snapping our fingers and negating it and saying it doesn't exist. We're saying it exists, but we're reframing the field in which it exists, right? We're looking at it in a new perspective and saying it's not the ultimate reality. We're ongoing remembering, I have that goal, I want that I'm preparing to do this professionally, or to nurture my relationships in a certain way, or I'm doing these things. But does my real eternal happiness lie there? Are they going to fulfill me in any way? No, I'm already full. Does happiness come from these things? It comes from within me. So we keep churning in this way while being empowered, while saying, and I'm also the creator of this entire reality. So I have so much power and creativity. So we unite the small will. There's a small part of us that says, my value, my meaning, my happiness, my fulfillment, my joy relies on engaging in the world in a certain way and bending it to my will and preferences. Rather, we soften that and find that we're still engaged in the world. We're still doing all those things, but without the feeling so invested in the highs and the lows. So I would say in this process, we're going to receive teachings very practically on what that looks like. But along the way, notice that, does my engagement with this thing keep reminding me of my inner expansiveness, or is it boxing me? Am I stepping inside of a small little room with no windows, or am I feeling expansive and free in the pursuit of this? And that's kind of a litmus test to see, am I overly engaged here, or am I engaged in a mindful, conscious, awake, aware way? So that constant discernment helps us feel inwardly free, even while we're doing all the things. That's just a few shares around that, but I know for sure, Isha, that as you and all of us experiment with these ideas, that nuance, that balance point becomes more trustworthy. We begin to trust ourselves more, knowing when to move forward and when to relax and allow. So that dance, we become part of this play. Yeah. Yeah. Kalyani, would you like to share as well?
Yes, Gemma. I was thinking about the story that Shunji shared about the elephant and the different people having different views of what that reality was based on what part of the elephant they were in contact with. And so to me, that the contemplation came that this, and I was thinking too of this connection between Maya and samsara, that thinking that the Maya isn't, yes, it's ultimately saying that what we are thinking is so real, right? What we're experiencing in this world is not the ultimate reality. But I've also found, I suppose, just even as an intermediate step at times in order to get there, there's a bit of spaciousness that kind of came to me with that example with the elephant, of saying that this reality that my mind has just created, the samsara, this subjective reality, and because of Maya, I'm convinced that that is the reality, that in fact there are other possibilities, right? And that can manifest in a bit of compassion toward another's point of view, that this is the samsara that they are creating, right? But then ultimately, right, all of this is samsara, and the ultimate reality is that pure unchanging awareness. But just that this example, just that kind of spaciousness in the in between, of going between those two, even as I'm thinking about it now, is just there's a bit of softness and compassion that kind of comes there to say, I'm seeming so wedded to this, but let's not be so wedded to it because it's not the only reality in this subjective world, and then it's also, of course, not the ultimate reality too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it does soften us. It softens our yes. And that is the goal and the purpose of today's uh, teachings that Acharya Shunya gave us, was simply to create putty out of what seemed like it was made of bricks, you know? So we are just kind of softening up things that felt very, very firm and unmovable. And as we close today, I'll just list all of the stories and analogies that came just in this brief 20-minute video. Because each one is, as she said, a facet. You know, she first talked about the fire spinner, where there is a ball of fire which creates shapes, but there is no circle. She talked about from the physics language, that the observer or consciousness is giving existence to matter. Only when it's observed does that matter exist. She shared the story of the person blindfolded thinking they were walking through this room full of pillows and so many pitfalls, and they had to be smart and clever. But then when they opened their blindfold, they realized the game was that the children had removed the pillows and they could have just walked through. So this idea that we're doing a special dance, but there's really nothing to navigate. The idea of the inheritors of 17 elephants, and the king comes and adds one, and one person gets half, one gets a third, one gets 9, and it's logical, but it seems to defy our sense of logic that there would then be one left over. How is that possible? The idea of Narada and Krishna, which we discussed today, of Narada feeling like he lived a full 12 years of joy, pleasure, loss, tragedy, but it was in 10 minutes, and he wakes up from it, from a dream, and realizes he was close to Brahman all along. This definition of Maya as yamasa Maya, that which is not there but appears to be there, is Maya. She talked about Maya as an imperceptible power which can't be defined or described clearly. So the example for this was the many hands, blindfolded folks on holding and perceiving parts of the elephant and coming back sure in their conviction of what it is and what it's all about. So we are confounded by Maya, and we come away with different ideas about what it is because we're just touching parts of it. She talked about the mirage of water, this deceptive power that leads to illusions, wrong conclusions. We see a mirage of water that is not there, and yet it seems like it's there. She talked about the silver in a shell, you know, like in a shell which has that silvery surface, and we look at it and we may think it's silver, but actually it's mother of pearl. So it appears to be one thing, but it's actually something else. So these are some of the stories, the analogies, the imagery that we can kind of cycle through and sit with one and see what insight comes up for us with it, and sit with another and see what insight comes up from us with it. Or perhaps there's one or more that deeply resonate with you, that you carry with you. So it's worth reviewing these various ways to come at it. I'm seeing here, Rochelle shares, beginning with the question, who am I? Investigating Maya as a world of appearances, deceptions, perceptions, a type of conjuring in this samsara. Another word of illusion, another world of illusion. It's confusing and confounding, and it brings on a type of resignation and detachment from it because it's not important to figure it out. Plus, we won't be able to anyways. Thank you, Rochelle, for sharing where you're at with this concept. And Parisa shares, today's teaching gave me a subtle understanding of how I need to keep being aware of impermanence. This too shall pass, while holding my attention on the permanence from which everything around me appears to emerge. Now is like it has always been since eternity. Yes. Yes. So we're beginning to see through this spell. And as she said at the close of this section, that as spiritual seekers, our work here is to just become aware that there is this power. There is this play. There is this projection which is existing all around us. So thank you. Thank you for holding this space together in this way where we are starting to question things. We're starting to tussle with them. We're starting to, we have to be gentle with ourselves. And many times the ego wants to hold tight and doesn't want to allow us to soften. We feel it can emerge a feeling of fear. If I let go of the idea that this is what I am and this is who I am and that reality is something different than I think, maybe I'll crumble apart. Maybe I'll evaporate into thin air. You know, these are the kind of unspoken thoughts and feelings that can emerge when we entertain these ideas of Maya. But know that we are safe, know that we are whole, know that we are complete and eternal. And allow yourself, give yourself a little permission to soften in these ways. We'll continue this conversation in next week. Acharya Shunya's teachings will go on. So let us close now with our closing prayer. I'll invite Kalyani to bring forward the chant and chant us as we close.
Thank you, Sadhvi Ishani, for holding this space for all of us to deeply hear and to contemplate these teachings. And thank you to Acharya Shunya for the teachings. And we'll now chant our closing prayer from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which really encapsulates this soft inner work that we are invited to take part in as spiritual seekers, this work of becoming aware of this spell that we are under and moving toward that identification from that which is changeable and that is darkness and untrue to that eternal, to that which is true and the light and mortal, immortal. And so I invite you, if you wish to chant along or simply to listen, on an inhale. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamasto Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace Peace. Thank you all for your presence and for your shares. And we will meet again. Jai Ma, Jai Gurudev.